Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of HomeKit Insider. I have not been feeling well this week, and it is honestly great to be back with y'all. We have a great episode, some exciting news to churn through, including we've got new Hue lights to talk about. We're going to go through everything that is new with tvOS 18. There's quite a bit of stuff to talk about there. There are new Qi2 chargers to break down, a whole lot of stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into this with probably what I was most excited to see this week, which was new Hue products. And I love these so much. I wish the flagship product, these lamps, are not quite so expensive. So starting out, Hue has basically 3 new products in the categories. These were leaked like just before we were going to record. And since I wasn't feeling super up to snuff, I had held off in recording, and now it kind of worked out because everything is official and I can talk about all the real products. So the first one is the Twilight Bedside Lamp. I love this. It is a very unique look. I've gone ahead and made it the chapter art. If you're listening to the podcast version, you can see it, but it's a shorter lamp, which I like, doesn't take up nearly as much space. It actually has dual cast lighting, so they call it color cast technology that puts a very nice gradient behind the lamp. So it goes on your wall as well as like an actual like front facing lamp to it. So it's got these 2 different light sources that light up the room in different ways. Really, really neat. They also highlight this specifically with Apple's like standby mode. So they show like a little iPhone in standby mode with little sleep automations, which I think is super cool. So you could technically use this like sleep automation to put your devices into sleep mode, as well as putting this lamp into this sleep mode version, which essentially kind of starts like a timer, a countdown, and mimics the setting sun and all that stuff. It looks very cool. The other things to announce, or kind of that go with it, ultra low dimming, which is important on these bedside lamps. If you've seen other smart bulbs, you hit them to like 1% and it's still fairly prominent, like there's still some light going on. This is going to be really, really dim, so you could fall asleep with it at like 1%. So also important. But basically, these are going to be $280 and come in both black and white. I really like them, but I don't have, north of $500 to spend on a pair of bedside lamps. But my immediate thought was like, holy smokes, these look really cool. I love these sleep and wake up automations that these offer. I love the size of them. I love the look of them. Don't love the price of them, but I know a lot of Hue's integrated fixtures can be a little pricey. So that's where we're at with the Hue. Again, they're called the Twilight lamps. They're basically bedside lamps, but you wouldn't have to necessarily use them for that. The next product they have is the Solo Lightstrip, which is super confusing. It took me a little bit of digging to kind of figure out what was going on here, because if you realize, Hue offers several light strips already. So what is the Solo Lightstrip? Very question that I had, but let's hit the specs first. So 1700 lumens, comes in 10, 16, and 33 foot sizes. It's basically the Hue Lightstrip Plus, but it is cheaper. So very similar, just cheaper. It has a updated power supply that goes with it that is connected to. It can be shortened every 33 centimeters, and it cannot be extended by simply plugging it in per Hue blog. So that might be where some of the savings are coming from there. Like you can't extend it. Maybe that's the solo aspect of it, whereas the regular one has like those pins at the end. Now you could cut and do that manually if you wanted to go that route. If you're, longtime listeners, watchers of the show, I talked about doing this to my cabinets, and I extended a Hue light strip with some like cat cable, Ethernet cable to go across the 2 sides to bridge like that span. So that's a possibility, but you're not going to get that plug and play situation to extend it. $90 to start out with, which is notably cheaper than the standard Hue Lightstrip Plus. So at least an option here if you have this space that meets those requirements. The last new product that Philips Hue was going to announce, or Signify announced, was 3 new light guide bulbs. Very cool looking. So they have a large globe, a small globe, an Edison, and a triangle. So I guess four. I misread my notes. We have four new bulbs: small globe, a large globe, Edison, and triangle coming into the mix. I'm huge fans of these bulbs. They also have new bases that go along with them. So Edison bulbs, typically you're going to like plug them into fixtures you already have, hang them from the ceiling as pendant lights, which Philips Hue also offers like specific pendant hanging cables for them because of the size of them. So they made sure that they fit. But now they're offering these bases that look super slick. They look like they're already sold out, but they're pretty expensive too, which is a bummer. But I already love the idea of putting these bulbs on a table. Hue Blog as well was talking about how they had suggested like people 3D print holsters for these and make some tableware ones. And this is kind of what they've done here. I think this is a great idea. And so we're working on like renovating our dining room again. We did like that pantry on the one side, and now I'm going to do like a coffee bar and everything on the other. I'm trying to figure out like some cool lighting to put in there. I was thinking about dangling some of these light guide bulbs, but I kind of like the idea of having them sitting on a table connected to a fixture, like some sort of really bespoke looking base. I might make one out of wood. That would be fun. Maybe like just a rustic piece of wood, embed a a whatever that called, like this part, a light bulb socket, integrate one of those in there. I've made a few lamps in the past, so that wouldn't be too bad to do. So that'd be kind of neat, but these all look great. The last thing that Signify was announcing was that there were some updates to the Hue app. Sensors can now be grouped together. If you are doing a lot of your automations or your setups through the Hue app, so you have a bigger Hue setup, this will be great. So the idea is if you have a larger room or a larger space, you could set this up so that all of these sensors do the same thing. So maybe if you have a living room with like two entrances and everything, instead of having to create automations for each of the sensors on like each of the entranceways, or you have a very large room and you have a couple motion sensors in there, instead of all requiring them to have their own automations to trigger and untrigger the lights and such, you can group them together and act as like one virtual sensor that will detect and stop detecting motion in a room. And this works for the cameras as well. So that'll be very nice if you're using a lot of Hue sensors in larger spaces. Next up in the news, this isn't so much news, but something that I found really interesting, and not necessarily in like a Schadenfreude way where like I'm excited that something else is failing, but just to kind of give you a small update on the progress of Google's Find My Devices situation. So Find My Devices is Google's clone of Apple Find My. They all do the same thing. Apple actually worked with Google on different aspects of this, including like being tracked by unwanted devices and things like that. So everything should be playing very nicely. We're also seeing new trackers come to market that are able to work with both platforms. So you can buy one device and it's going to work with Google Find My or Apple, Google Find My devices or Apple Find My. So it'll work with both no matter which one you prefer or which one you happen to support. So all of those are great things, but unfortunately, it seems like things are a little bit off to a rocky start. So Android Central did this rundown in testing the Google Find My Devices network. It's been a bit rough. So they set up a bunch of different trackers and they all set them up inside of the Google Find My, and they're actually setting up ones that we've all heard of because I've talked about them on the show, including Pebblebee and Chipotle. Like these are not, small ones, made up ones, anything like that. But they set them all up. They put them into their Find My app on their Google device, and then they sent them with their friends. So they had like 5 different ones and they sent them out with all of their friends. And then their whole plan was to just see how long it took before they sent back. And then their friends would be able to confirm, like, yes or not, they're at that location. And they went through all the setup process, which worked really, really well. They said all of that was great. Pebblebee and Chipotle cards. But after that, it didn't go so smooth. So they say, this is their quote, because I wanted to make sure I had this like right. Um, the next day, I marked all Bluetooth trackers as lost. Surely at least one of the 5 trackers would be found over the next few days. Shockingly, 3 whole days passed before I heard anything back. So they sent these cards with their friends. Their friends have Android devices and have them on them, and they should have gotten a location very quickly. And yet it took 3 whole days before they got any updates on those locations to the Google network. This is something that I hope gets better because I want there to be these things. I want Google's Find My Device network to do well because it helps for this cross-platform tracking. It helps for adding things like the anti-stalking tracking efforts that both Google and Apple have been working on. I don't think this is going to be a nail in the coffin, but it's definitely going to hurt the uptick of this. And I hope it's something that Google can address and start doing better with. Next up in the news, oh, by the way, just to also be clear, because I talked about Pebble Bean and Chipolo, I have never had those issues with the Google or with the Apple Find My network. I get these alerts all the time. They are very responsive. Literally, if I'm somewhere and I leave, I get that left behind alert within a minute or so of pulling out of a driveway. They've always been really great. So this is specifically a problem with the Google network and not the trackers. That was my point in mentioning them. Just maybe did not vocalize it with my words. Okay, Qi2 time. We have 1, 2, 3 chargers to break down. We always talk about these. A lot of them are standby mode, cool things like that. So the first one is from Blackbrook. They have a 3-in-1 foldable charger. It is aluminum Qi2 support. It launches this summer. We've looked at a few different folding ones. Satechi has a folding one. I believe Aukey has a solid folding one that we talked about a while back. All really good options. This one looks nice. They say it's super lightweight in aluminum. I do not have it yet to try it, but it does look very good. 3-in-1 fast charge Apple Watch, kind of all the specs you'd assume. There's a little bit different look compared to some of the others on the market, but I like this. This 3-in-1 flat folding design, I think, is catching on. We've now seen more and more companies launch them like this, so this is cool. The next two are a little more boring, but they're still similarly as necessary. So Rockform, they have a new car charger, all aluminum design, has a 90-degree adapter for the power cable, which I thought was neat. So the power cable, it's round. It's just a round disc with a vent mount on the back, and there's a little USB port on essentially the bottom of it. But if you have maybe vertical facing vents or you have a tight situation, it might have to face the opposite way. They include a little 90-degree USB-C adapter in the box, so you can still make that fit. I think it's a very smart idea because if you have those vertical slats on your vents, you put this in, your cable's going to shoot off to the side and then slowly fall down. This is going to be a better solution. So super good props to them for including it in the box. Here's the thing, $90 to $89. This is one of the more expensive car chargers that I have seen using Qi2. That's quite a bit. That is a lot, frankly. I think the aluminum plays a part of that because we do see a lot that are just plastic, other lightweight, cheaper materials. So the aluminum probably is going into that cost, and it might have an actual benefit too. I could see that aluminum acting as a solid heat sink. Heat is going to be a big issue for car chargers. Not only is it, wirelessly charging, which generates heat, Qi2 and MagSafe both can get quite warm, but you're also in your car. You could be running wireless CarPlay. You're running maps. You're doing all those things that can also add heat to your phone, let alone if it is a hot day, your sun is coming through, your car is already warm, anything like that, that's going to add more heat. So I'm hoping that there is a benefit to using aluminum, not just doing it for the sake of using it. That's going to help cool that temperature down. But yeah, $90 for the one from Rockform. Satechi, a little bit of a different design, $60 on this one. Qi2 support, of course. This one includes a 3.3-foot USB-C cable and a 25-watt cigarette lighter adapter for easy immediate use. Most vehicles look like aluminum. This has a space gray look. I don't know if it's aluminum or not. I cannot tell. They do not specify the material on the website, which makes me think it's not. When something is aluminum, companies like to tell you that. It's a very big bragging point. We're using recycled aluminum or we're using aircraft grade aluminum, these things that we hear all the time from marketing folk. It's not mentioned here. So my gut is telling me that it is plastic. I also read a hands-on that 9 to 5 Toys did, I think, and they also didn't specify the material. They just said that it was lighter weight than they'd anticipated. So that doesn't tell me if it's aluminum or plastic, but my gut is saying it's just plastic, and it looks very nice, like aluminum with its space gray finish. So take that for what it's worth. This does have a stabilizer at the bottom. We see this with others, such as Pitaka, I think, has that. We see it a lot with ESR. They do a great job, but it's a little adjustable foot on the back on the bottom to rest up against your vent. So it clips onto the vent mount. Then there's a little adjustable foot stabilizer on the bottom that helps with bouncing and things like that. The 905 Toys said they like the lighter weight because it'll probably help with the bouncing. I find that a little bit more weight helps more because it keeps it down. It's got that stabilizer arm, and then it can't bounce up as much, and then it won't go down because of the stabilizer. So I think a little bit more weight typically helps in my experience of testing out a lot of these, but your mileage may vary. So 3 new ones, all Qi 2. You can check those out in the show notes if any of them interest you. Moving on to Apple stuff, I want to hit one thing about DockKit, if anyone's familiar with that, and then we're going to get into tvOS. So DockKit, we talked about the Belkin Dock Pro, I want to say is what it's called. That is their all-in-one solution, right? That you put your iPhone on, supports MagSafe, 15 watts of charging, has a built-in battery that you're able to take with you and use it as a rotating, follow camera that's going to move around and track you and everything. It can rotate up and down, flip over, all this stuff. Super nice products. Well, now DockKit is getting upgraded. In iOS 18, it now appears to have intelligent subject tracking. So it's able, like, they show off the scene like a crowded environment. There's like people in the background. It's able to identify who you should be focusing on or who the camera should be following and keeping in focus by using a bunch of different things, including machine learning and AI, to identify people based on proximity to camera, who is like talking to who, the volume of their voice, their body language, all this kind of stuff to determine who's like a background person and who is the subject of this video. All very cool stuff that I like. So intelligent subject tracking is coming to DockKit with iOS 18. There's now button support for DockKit, so they could build on buttons onto products. So right now, when you're doing things through, like, you could use whatever app. So you could jump in the camera app, you can jump into TikTok, YouTube, whatever. You don't have to use the on-screen buttons to control things. Now you can actually have buttons on the product, which makes extra sense when you hear the next change. DockKit will officially support gimbals. That's right, handheld gimbals will now be able to support DockKit, and they'll be able to intelligently follow you, work with native apps, all of that stuff, which is amazing. I love it. That's going to be so cool. So it'll pair still via NFC, snap your phone to it, and then you can move and it'll follow you around and do all the stuff that the Dock Pro from Belkin does. We're going to see some of these soon. They were able to kind of demo one off a little bit, but we'll be able to tell you that in the future. Last thing for DockKit, 3 different new types are supported. Photos, panorama, and cinematic mode videos are all supported for DockKit devices. I love it. This is all great to see. So expect more about that soon. Before we get into tvOS 18, let me take a moment to thank our sponsor for this video, Shopify. So when you start selling stuff online, or whether you start selling stuff in stores, if you are selling anything, you should be aware of Shopify. Shopify is a leading platform for retailers to help you sell your goods. Physical store, online store, can handle everything, digital goods, physical goods, all of that can be supported through Shopify. There are so many benefits to it. Like, they give me notes on all these other things that I can tout, but you'll hear those in other podcasts, other places that they sponsor. I will tell you the stuff here that I think it matters to actual users. Simplified checkout platform for users. As a user, I love this. You go to checkout, you're on a website, maybe you haven't bought from them before. Oh, is this sketchy? Do I have to worry about it? Do I have to worry about, my information, my credit card information? Like, you have that little bit of hesitancy, but you get to that checkout process, boom, it's safe because you recognize that Shopify checkout platform, and it has all these different payment options. You could automatically just like go through it using like Shop Pay. It'll like text you a code, put it in, boom, you can get done with checkout in just a few seconds. Or you can use Apple Pay and Google Pay, even better because you can use those natively supported. If you're a retailer, if you don't want to support those for whatever reason, you can turn them off too. But very easy to use those things. I love it from a consumer side. Any website that supports Apple Pay, I'm going to shop with probably multiple times because it's so easy to use. Then as a customer, once you place that order, you can get kicked over to the Shop app where you can track everything from fulfillment to delivery and then afterward leave a review. The Shop app also has like AI powered suggestions for other stores you might like based on where you shop, which I think is super great. And I've used it many times for like gift suggestions and stuff like that. So really cool thing to check out, even regardless of selling with Shopify. As a Shopify like platform, you have tons of benefits as well. It's so easy to implement, to manage everything, to manage your inventory, to handle returns, all this stuff. Again, physical locations as well as online. I love it. So I will mention a couple points. So Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. It's the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, millions more Apple users. You may know ones like Nomad Goods uses them, Moment uses them, tons of different companies do. They're supported in over 175 countries around the world. Shopify has extensive help resources to help with every success or help support your success every step of the way. And another one that I love, they have the internet's best converting checkout to 36% better compared to other leading commerce platforms. So here's what you guys can all do to experience this for yourself. So sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/HomeKit, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/HomeKit now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/HomeKit. So thank you, as always, to Shopify for sponsoring the episode. Let's round this out with tvOS 18. I already gave you the breakdown of what is in iOS 18. Now we're talking about Apple's set-top box. Starting things off, there is Insight. This is the ability to see who is in the movie or TV show that you're watching. You're looking like, I recognize that actor. Who are they? Well, now you can basically like tap or swipe up and it'll bring up this Insight panel, like with the scrub bar and everything, and you can see who they are, learn more about them, what they've been in, all that kind of stuff. If you've used Amazon Prime, super similar there to their X-ray feature that they have in their videos and their books. Slight downside here is it's limited to the Apple TV like content, Apple TV app. It's not going to work in like Hulu or Disney Plus, anything like that. At least not yet. Maybe Apple will open up as an API. I don't know. It's a lot of like footage to index unless they start like identifying the character on the screen and like cross comparing with the movie and IMDb pages, stuff like that. I don't know. Amazon has a leg up here because they literally own IMDb, so they're able to really get a good idea of who people are. It also shows music, which is fantastic. So it'll show the music that's an episode you're listening, like, oh, I love this track. You can pull it up, see what music it is, and add it to your Apple Music library. This will show up on your iPhone when you're using as a remote too, which is pretty smart. So if you're using your iPhone as a remote, you pull it up, it'll show on your iPhone, and you can take further action while continuing to watch your content up on the big screen. Enhanced dialogue now works with third-party speakers. So if you're using a different sound bar, you're using your TV speakers, you can now have the benefits of enhancing the dialogue so it's easier to hear when someone is speaking. To go along with this, subtitles are now more intelligent. There's all this different stuff based on the languages that you're listening to versus like you have your system set to. But the idea is when you like jump back a scene, you're like, wait, what did he say? And you hit like the skip button back. Now it could pull up subtitles automatically because it assumes that you maybe want to hear or read what that person said. So it'll pull it up, play the subtitles for that portion, and then disappear again unless you just want to leave them on. So super smart. General home improvements. We've talked about them here on the show. There is guest access for your home now. You can give this out for things like garage door security devices, security systems, all of those things. Still no shared home key as far as I know. There's hands-free unlock coming to smart lock, which is not really specific to the Apple TV. But RoboVacs are also coming. You'll be able to send out your RoboVac from your tvOS 18 device to go clean your home, vacuum, mop, everything like that. There is 21.9 support for projectors, so ultra wide screen. If you have anything that you watch with a projector that's ultra wide like that, that aspect ratio is now supported natively on Apple TV. There's no longer be black bars or poor stretching or anything. There are new size options for icons. You can opt for large. Apple does have a similar option on iOS 18 where you can choose a larger icon, so make their text go away, and it looks pretty nice. Kind of wish you could do no text on the smaller icons for a cleaner look, but we'll take it for now. When it's in the large aspect ratio or large mode for those icons, it'll show 5 in a row instead of 6. There are new screensavers coming. There's a new portrait effects one. There's one for TV and movies that'll specifically tout Apple TV content to you, like Apple TV Plus content to you. And then there's a Snoopy one that, just like on the Apple Watch, comes up with some sort of new animation every time that it pops up on the screen. Love it. Uh, Furthermore, Sigmund Judge did like extra legwork on pulling some other small features. So I did borrow some of his like list for this. So always check him out. But he says that portraits can be set to people in your photos or just the ones you mark as favorites in the Photos app. Very nice too. And you can choose to include pets, nature, and cities further when you are like granularly selecting what stuff you use for portraits. So all nice settings there. There's also a new way to edit screensavers. Like you have a screensaver up and you can like long hold and it'll push back into like a little inset. And there's like a little carousel that you can scroll through and choose your, I almost said wallpapers, but your screensavers. It looks similar to editing a lock screen over on your iPhone. I think this is really great. If you are taking a FaceTime call, there is now live caption, so it can caption your call using things like machine learning to understand what people are saying, provide live captions there, which is a great accessibility feature. There's been a redesigned Apple Fitness app. Looks better than before, a little bit easier to control, a new For You section, stuff like that. There is a option for creating a dedicated camera for your Apple TV. What this means is that if you had a specific device that you had permanently mounted and plugged in that you wanted to use as a camera for your Apple TV, you could set it as a permanent camera that whenever you opened up FaceTime or took a call, it would use that camera. I think this is an interesting option. So first, this may be pretty niche. Who just has a spare iPhone that they're going to have set up for the situation? Like not a lot of everyday users. This could be more of like a corporate play. Like maybe this is for like a conference room and they want to have just a camera there set up. So they do have an iPhone mounted, ready to go for all of their calls. I could see that as a use case. The other option could be this could be like a precursor for some future features coming down the line. We have long heard about possibilities of maybe like an Apple TV with a dedicated camera. They're going to have a default camera selected because it'll be the one built in. And then there's, you could also choose your iPhone. So this could be kind of, preempting that. Maybe we could also see support for webcams come to a future Apple TV. Like you plug one in over USB-C. Maybe that's a thing. I could see that as well. I think these are all possibilities down the line. So we'll have to see, but maybe hinting Apple seems to be doubling down on this camera situation with the Apple TV. There are new live TV previews. Sigmund, thank you again for spotting this one. But if you have like a live event, like a baseball game, a soccer game, and MLS or MLB, you pull it up in the TV app, there'll now be like a live preview going on in the background with or without volume, depending on your settings. But it'll just start playing in the background and you can glance at it before jumping in. Also, specifically when you're jumping in, there is this new option for these little play-by-play recaps of the game. So you can watch these editorialized snippets of what had gone on in the game, which is very cool. So lots of new features coming to Apple TV. Not everything that we wanted, I don't imagine, but quite a few new things that I'm excited for. So this will be a great update for the Apple TV coming out this fall. The last thing before we wrap the episode, I had one question from a listener. So Justin Rasmussen wrote in, and it's a question, but not a question. Why aren't bathroom fans a category in Matter or Apple Home? And I actually really liked this because at first it seems so simple, right? And I'm like, oh, it's just a fan. A fan's a fan. And yes, why not? A manufacturer of ceiling fans for bathrooms could create a smart home version with integration for Matter or Apple Home. wouldn't be an issue. Another option would be to swap the wall switch, right? In my bathroom, I just got wall switches, put in a new wall switch, boom, we got a HomeKit one, and you can just turn it on or off. But I'm also a bit of, I guess, behind the times with my bathroom fans, because there are all sorts of new ones that you can get that would make more sense. There are new ones that include automated triggering based on things like temperature and humidity. There are ones with built in speakers that you can use, usually Bluetooth, to play music through. If you had any of those fancier ones that had additional components, you wouldn't necessarily just be able to change the wall switch because like they have additional controls and you would break other functionality that way. So Justin wondered if you could make these actually work as multiple sensors. So maybe what's there now could be technically supported if it has a temperature, a humidity sensor, as well as on and off status for the fan. Just create that in home or Matter. That it would be one device that you add with multiple sensors / accessories inside of that one device. We see it with multi sensors. We see it with like a smoke detector that also does CO and CO2 and noise and motion, all that kind of stuff. So that would also be possible. I would love to see a ceiling fan that had a built-in, motion sensor to trigger when you were or were not in the bathroom. Above is a great point of view for a motion sensor to be installed, especially like a proximity sensor or sorry, a presence sensor that would do a little bit better there. So I could see that being great. Um, Justin also wondered if maybe it would fall into the Matter category of being able just to say this is like a range hood because appliances are supported and there are extra parts that go along with that. If this was like a range hood for your kitchen, but they just use a similar thing like, oh, when stuff is detected and could do similar things, but as a ceiling fan for a fan for a bathroom. So it's an interesting thought. I'd be very curious at what others are doing in their bathrooms for automations with fans. It has been on my list to actually just swap out my plate and put in a smart switch to control the ceiling fan in our bathroom, but I have not gotten around to it yet. This is something interesting. So if anyone else has anything smart out there that they have done or have heard of any that would maybe fit into any of these categories, for sure, go ahead and drop me a line. All my contact information is in the show notes per usual. Thank you to everybody for staying tuned with me for this episode. Lots of cool stuff that we talked about today. Go ahead, leave me a 5, 10, 100-star review on your podcast player of choice. If you didn't get a chance, you can watch the video version of this over youtube.com/HomeKit Insider. Go ahead and stay tuned, and we'll be back with you guys next week.